Okay, next video, very quick one. I think this happened in Chicago. Electrical service due to a storm with 75-mile-per-hour winds knocked out electricity throughout some part of Chicago or whatever. Commonwealth Edison Company reported substantial progress in restoring power lost on Monday's storms, but that still left hundreds of thousands without electricity in sweltering heat. The utility warned it could take days to get everyone back online. A record, quote, remember this word because you're going to hear it a lot, and I always use it a lot in my videos because I'm not lying when I say a record was set. Whether it be earthquake record set, volcanic activity record set, national deficit record set, gold and silver record sets, etc. Record, 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 record. Are those the type of words you think you would hear during a recovery back to normal, even if we're talking about earth changes and weather and stuff? Record snow melt, record flooding, record winds, etc., etc., etc. Record heat next to record cold. Back to back, same place. No, it's not. So, of course, a record-breaking 868,000, almost a million homes and businesses were left without power by the storms that ripped through the area at 75 miles per hour, the highest number of outages in 13 years. But by 11 a.m., that had been reduced to about 350,000. So that's interesting that it says a record 868,000 homes and businesses were left without power. And then it says by storms that ripped through the area at 75 miles per hour, the highest number of outages in 13 years. So how could it be a record if it's the highest number of outages in only 13 years? It can't break records, so I don't understand whoever wrote this. But regardless, has there not been a record number of this type of thing happening lately? Lately, last 2 years, 1 year, this year even. Floods causing this, storms causing that, blizzards, not same power outages caused by blizzards, all that stuff. So, to talk about that for a second, 75 miles per hour winds. That's hurricane force wind. That is actually the definition now. That speed is of a hurricane, low hurricane, but nonetheless hurricane force winds. And it was just a storm, not a hurricane. So remember a couple WebBot reports ago.
I did poop.
You did poops?
Yes.
Go tell mommy. See, life comes in at you no matter what. When you're in the middle of doing a video, it doesn't matter. 2-year-old did some poops. She's very happy about that. And so are we, because she doesn't wear a diaper anymore. And she goes in the potty. So, anyway, 75-mile-an-hour winds. Hurricane winds. 2 WebBot reports ago. Inland hurricane may not make sense right now. This is earlier 2011. This is like springtime or just past wintertime. Inland hurricanes. While that term may not make sense to you now, it will sometime around summer. Inland hurricane. Chicago was inland. There wasn't a hurricane, but there was hurricane force winds that started somewhere inland and just floated through this area of Chicago, knocking out power all over the place. Huh. Sounds like a WebBot hit. Prior to this, fairly recently as well, you could look on radar images of what appeared to be a massive, giant hurricane on North American continent. 2 different times. And people even email me, dude, check this out. You were just talking about the WebBot report, inland hurricanes. Is this what they're talking about? And then there's a news clipping of a local news station actually referring to this thing with that word. Inland hurricane. Wow, what a WebBot hit. Incredible, right? So here's actually a different type of inland hurricane, not the word, but you actually had 75 mile per hour winds, which is category 1 winds, simply from a rainstorm. So if that's just a rainstorm doing this, I wonder how much worse it's going to get over the next few years, right? The grand alignment in 2012 and all that stuff. How bad could it get? Who knows? But I can tell you it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And anything that builds up, builds up, builds up, builds up, faster, 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 it reaches a climax like everything and then goes away and starts over. You plant a seed in the ground, as I always say this example, you plant a seed in the ground, it starts to sprout up, turns into a flower or a plant, a crop, bears fruit, gets old, wilts, dies, end of the discussion. Drops seeds on its way out, those seeds take, right, they build up, whatever. Human lifespan, same thing. Baby, or actually a seed also, technically speaking, an egg, right? Baby, human, walking, talking, doing videos on YouTube, getting old, dying, etc. Same thing. So everything has a peak, climax, and then it declines. We are not at the peak or climax of this earth changes weather phenomenon. I'm telling you that right now. It's building now and is getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So if you think this little story in Chicago is going to be the only thing you may hear in the near future, I'm going to tell you right now, you're wrong. There's going to be a lot more stories like this happening all over the place. Flooding caused this kind of catastrophe, powers out, whatever, something happened. Ice storm, blizzard happens this winter, whatever, causes this and that. Just as soon as they get cleaned up, earthquake strikes, causes this and that. And that's one of the things Webbot talked about. We're going to we're actually getting close to that point right now where big disasters happen, and just as they kind of get it cleaned up and kind of taken care of, another one hits just as powerful or even more powerful, and then they have to, get the people ready again. We got to do it all over here in this part of America. Get that cleaned up, and that was huge. Got that kind of taken care of. People are out of their houses. They're displaced. We got to do something with those people. Oh shoot, another thing happens. Big stuff. That's what's in store for us, and this is not just gonna be America. The planet and the Earth weather is not just going to be strictly America. It's going to be all over the place. So I just wanted to share that with you. It is kind of a Webbot hit also, and you need to start being prepared of, what would life be like without electricity for a week or two? Not a day or two, a week or two, or 3, or 4 potentially if this thing gets bad, worse, worse, worse. They're not going to be able to get the lines back up and fix things before another storm or another thing happens and knocks even more down. Right? 1 step forward, 2 steps back. That's the kind of thing we're going to be getting into. So, I, particularly here at this house, as I've shown in some of my older videos, have solar panels. It is nowhere near enough to run my whole house, but it is 1600 watts total, which, by the way, whatever total you get or you buy, you're going to lose 20% immediately off the top. Factor it in when you go to buy yours if you ever do. You will lose approximately 20% of the rated solar output due to the electronics and things and the transfer, the inverter and all that stuff. It's going to just use some of that wattage. So by the time it gets to your house, you can expect 1100 or 1200 or something like that, maybe, roughly. So anyways, I have that here. I have an inverter. I have my room, which also includes the computer room and mainly the family room, tied into my inverter and solar panel system, which has a battery backup system as well. Not a real powerful battery backup, but decent enough to do stuff. I can run everything I need to run, including a window AC unit. If it was sweltering heat here, we could all pile into one room, my room, one of my kids' room, hook up the AC unit in the window, shut the door, and have a nice little family day during the summer because it's brutal inside the room in a nice cold air conditioner, easily handled by the solar panels. Don't even need to use the battery because it only uses 500 watts for one of these little AC units, and I've got 1100 1200 watts sitting out there, feeding back into the electric grid, which, by the way, makes my meter spin backwards slowly when the air's not on, when the water heater's not on, because those things do take up some serious energy. But when those two items are off, I can go out there and actually watch it just creep very slowly backwards. It's kind of neat to see that. But at the same time, I don't care about that, even though my electric bill is a little bit lower because of these solar panels helping. This is strictly what would old Joe and his family need and do if the power went out. And having AC is just a comfort. I don't even have to have that. But I've got the refrigerator, right? I got some stuff in there. But at the same time, if the refrigerator went out, I'm not going to lose a bunch of food and be like, oh my god, there goes a week's worth of food. What are we going to do? I've got the freeze-dried stuff to last my family many, 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 many months. Easily. All I need is water. And the water I can get, I've got a pool out back as well. If I need to take water out of there, run it through the big Berkey water filter, etc. I could do that if I wanted to. Anyway, so you may want to think about solar panels if you've already got your silver taken care of, you've got your food storage taken care of, and you still have good amount of money left over that you're thinking in your head, what else do I need? What else can I afford to buy? May not be a bad idea to get some solar panels. I did hook all that stuff up myself. I do have a little bit of background in electronics, electrical, both AC, DC, so I knew what I was doing. I didn't really have to like read a manual or anything like that. I knew exactly what I was doing with that stuff, and that's actually one thing that I think Pastor Dowell could probably use at his community ranch or whatever you want to call it, that I did not see. I know they have, I'm pretty sure anyways, he has some generators and things like that, but solar panels could work wonders. You know, you could, those little hot plates, you could plug a hot plate in, cook some stuff on there for everybody right off, basically using the sun power, you know, through the solar panels. Cook off a hot plate. You can do other things. You can turn on the TV if you need to hear what's going on in the world, like, you know, electricity. Turn on a radio. You know, if your batteries failed. There's all kinds of good uses that you could, of course, have a little bit of electricity and say, oh, I want to turn on the computer and the internet. I can plug my router, cable modem, or whatever you got, computer, laptop, plug all that stuff into this thing, and at least see what's going on online. Get information, whatever you need to do, communicate with people, families, whatever, that sort of thing. So it's definitely something, but it is kind of expensive. Having said that, the cheapest place on the face of the earth that I found is in Miami, Florida. The website is www.sunelec, SUNELEC, sunelec.com. You can go there and they've got solar panels for like $1.55 per watt. Man, you cannot make a solar panel. I mean, you can make one technically by yourself for a little over $1 probably, but you actually have to go get all the tiny pieces, solder them together, create the whole. It's nonsense. Forget that. For $1.55 a watt, you might as well get these things. So, you know, a 200 watt panel is going to cost you a little over $300 for one 200 watt panel, which again minus 20% or so, you're left with about 175 watts, or you know, thereabout 180, whatever. Or is that right? Or would it be more like 150 watts actually? Yeah, because we're talking 20%. 20% of 100 would be 24. Yeah, about 160 watts, 150 watts roughly is what you'd be left over with. I think something like that. 170 if you're lucky. But you can get more than one, right? You got your inverter. You've got your battery bank, which you don't necessarily need on certain solar panel systems. I just happen to have one. But when I bought it, I think I was paying closer to maybe $2.50 or $2.68 a watt when I bought my 1600 watts worth of panels. My system can handle, I think, around 3600 watts total with the one inverter that I have. And so I could you know, practically triple what I've got, and man, I could do a lot with that. I could almost not eliminate my electric bill, but I could almost eliminate it. But if I was out at a place like Pastor Dowell's, where there's several communities there living, and by the way, he told me that I think their electric bills, I'm not gonna give you the exact number, but it's between $500 and $1,000. But it's not just him. There are quite a few families living on his property with him in their own house, that kind of thing, on his property, doing the whole community thing, which is a beautiful thing to see in person, by the way. So all of them combined, it's that price. And it's not just 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 families. It's quite a bit more than that, right? So anyways, a place like that could probably use, you know, 10,000 watt solar panel system. So just to give you a rough idea of what something like that would cost if you did it all yourself. You know, in other words, if you bought the stuff where from that place I told you about, SunELEC, bought it from them, and then you installed it yourself, which you can do. It's not that hard. You would need 2 of the type of inverters that I have, and this also includes if you want to sell electricity back to the power grid. And by law, they have to pay you if you end up sending them more electricity than you use for the month. They have to legally send you a payment for the exact price that you would be paying them had you not had that solar panel system. So in theory, hey, let's get 20,000 watts of energy. We'll definitely feed it back, and we'll actually have residual income coming from the power company. And if they raise rates, who cares? They're raising the rate, they're going to pay us back. And wouldn't that be fantastic? But let me get back on track. 10,000 watt solar panel system, $1.55 a watt. We'll just round that off to $1.50 for easy math, because by the way, if you buy these things in huge pallets, they give you an even better discount than $1.55. You could probably pick them up for $1.30 something maybe. So, but let's just be fair for a second. $1.50 a watt, 10,000 watts times $1.50, etc. You're at $15,000 for 10,000 watts minus 20%. We'll call that 8,000 watts of power. Then you need two of these converters that I recommend, which are made by Outback, and they can handle 3,600 watts each times 2. And at that point, times 2, you can actually create 240 volt AC. Therefore, you could run the big AC units, you could run a kitchen stove, that kind of stuff, because only one of these inverters will run 120 volt or 110 volt, whatever you prefer to call it, standard electrical outlet. You know, you plug your TV, lamps, whatever, that type of voltage. Your air conditioner, and I'm not talking about a window mount, although some window mounts are 240 volt. For the most part, most of them are 110. You could run that stuff. But if you have central heat and air, you have the big giant stove with a big 3-prong connector, that's 240 volts. So you would need 2 of those things. For one thing, you would need 2 anyways, because you got 8,000 watts, and I think these things are limited at 3,600. So technically, you have a little more wattage coming in potentially than you could actually use even with 2 inverters. You'd have just slightly more wattage than you would need. So we'll call that 3,600, right? 7,200 watts. These things are maxed out. You got coming in all the time, and you have your battery bank set up so that in the middle of the night, in a complete emergency, by the way, you're gonna have to tell everyone. Nighttime comes around, nobody's running AC units. Nobody. We're saving the battery bank in the middle of the night. If you need to wake up, turn a light on, you want to read something, that's fine. We got plenty of power for that. You need to go cook something in the stove or the little, not the stove, but the little hot plate or something. Go for it. But no one's gonna run AC. You know, and just strictly to save the battery banks, because the more you bring the battery banks down and then you have to charge them again, bring them back down, charge them again, the quicker your battery banks will die. If you keep them topped off at 100% charge, 90% charge, back to 100, they will last years and years and years. So, again, let's talk money here. $15,000 for a 10,000 watt worth of solar panels coming to you. Okay, so there you have that. Now, you would need the 2 inverters. They're around $1,800 a piece. Let's just call that $2,000 a piece. There's $4,000. We're now at $19,000. Now you need a charge controller, which takes the... Let me explain how this runs. You have your solar panels that plug into a charge controller. Your battery bank also plugs into that same charge controller. Your inverter that provides power to your house, that converts the DC solar power to AC using your house power, that is plugged directly to the batteries. It does not plug into the inverter, or excuse me, the charge controller. The inverter plugs directly into your batteries. Okay? Your battery, the inverter will know when it's sucking too much off the battery based off of how much the charge controller is charging the battery, and as soon as it sees that voltage drop, it knows, oh, he's got X amount of wattage coming in, and the inverter will adjust itself accordingly. If the clouds come out and you take your 7,000, 8,000, whatever true wattage that's getting pumped into the electric grid and in your house or whatever, and then the sun gets hid behind some clouds, okay, now it's down to 3,000 watts for the time being because there's some real dark clouds. Even though some light's escaping, that's why you got 3,000 watts instead of 8,000. It will immediately tell based off of the battery voltage immediately and adjust itself to not put in 8,000 watts back into the grid and into your house, but instead put in 3,000 watts, because at 3,000 watts, it can tell the battery voltage doesn't change, it stays where it's supposed to be. Okay, that's the right spot. This happens, you know, milliseconds. So the last thing you need is the charge controller. The charge controller takes the solar panels output, right, 8,000, 10,000 watts, whatever it is, and then takes that and dumps that right into your batteries. the inverter sucks it directly from the batteries, so it's constantly being taken. So, anyways, we're at $19,000, $15,000 for your solar panels, another $4,000 for 2 of these particular inverters that I'm talking about, and then you need your charge controller, which is approximately $500 for the one that I got. It's an 80 amp version at 48 volts, and I believe that alone would be enough to do both of those inverters and the 10,000 watt system. I believe I'll have to check my calculations, but I'm not doing it in my head right now. It should, but it's only $500. So we're at $19,500. Let's call it $20,000. For $20,000 right now, today, you can have a 10,000 watt, again technically 8,000 or so watt system in your house, as long as you can install it, and it will spin your meter backwards and charge back to the electric company. Something like that would be so good for a place like Pastor Dowell's. And that's exactly what I would have if I start something like what he's got. And that's exactly what I would like to start, something like what he's got out there. Community thing. I mean, I would bring, if I went to a community like that and there was somewhere, and I was invited to live out into a community, and my wife and I and the kids, everybody, I would bring my whole solar panel system. I would bring all the stuff that I've got here, my survival stuff, my food stuff. I'd give it to the community, hook up the solar system. I've got 1,600 watts. Guys, don't do anything. I'm going to start selling some silver right now, even though the price isn't where I want it to be, right? I don't care. It doesn't matter. Sell some of it, and I will buy the rest of the solar panels, right? $20,000 or $15,000 in this case worth of solar panels, and hook up a community. I'm more of a technical guy. I'm hands-on too. I'm mechanically inclined. Used to be a mechanic. Used to work on water softeners. I did kind of little few things here and there in my life. Now I'm into computers and IT, but I've kind of been a jack of all trades, master of none my whole life, excluding construction and that sort of thing. I'm not a guy you want to rely on to build like buildings and houses and door frames. I don't have that skill set, and I'll tell you right now I don't. But Pastor Dow does, and I saw him in action over there. It was pretty awesome. So, anyway, I just want to share that with you. If you got extra money, man, you should get some solar panels. And if you need help installing them, have some questions, talk to me, because I got you covered on that. So, anyways, gotta go. Take care.